Hey, I'm Tom from New Story Community Books in downtown Marshall, and I am here to read chapters 4 and 5 of Jacqueline Woodson's Harbor Me. If there's one thing I do remember, as clear as if it had happened an hour ago, it's the afternoon when Miss Laverne said to us, "Put down your pencils and come with me." It was the end of September, and we had been taking a spelling test. Esteban had been absent for days, and when he finally returned, Miss Laverne asked him if he was going to do some work, and he nodded. "It helps me forget for a little while," he said. "Forget what?" Mari asked. "That nobody knows where they took him, and now we're packing up everything," Esteban said, "because if they took him, maybe they're going to take us too." I turned back to my test. I didn't want to think about fathers. Mine had been in prison for 8 years by then. In the last letter we'd gotten, he said he wasn't sure what would happen with his parole. If he got it, he didn't know exactly when he'd be coming home. I remember zero about living with him. Every good thing that happened had happened with my uncle. I couldn't imagine a different life. Didn't want to imagine it. Not for me, not for anyone. I was stuck on the word holiday. Did it have one? L or two? My spelling had always been bad, but Miss Laverne's class, it didn't matter so much because we were all different levels in one thing or another. "The words you miss just tell me what you don't know," Miss Laverne always said. "It says nothing about who you are." For some reason, that made me feel better. I was 11 years old. What 11-year-old didn't know how to spell holiday? "Put down your pencils and come with me." The 6 of us stood up. Our school uniforms were white shirts and dark blue pants or skirts. We could wear any jackets, shoes, and tights we wanted. I had worn blue and white striped tights that day. Holly's tights had red and stars on them. When we stood next to each other in the schoolyard that morning, our stars and stripes echoed the flag waving from the pool above us. We had spent the minutes before the bell rang dancing around it while Holly sang that old song about having a hammer. "I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out a warning." We stood next to our desks and waited for Miss Laverne to tell us what to do next. Amari pulled his hoodie over his head, then quickly pulled it off again, the way he sometimes did when he was nervous. Amari was beautiful. His skin was so dark, you could almost hear the color blue running beneath it. His eyes were dark too, dark like there was smoke behind his pupils, dark and serious and infinite. In that 5th, 6th grade class, I didn't know how to say any of this. I wanted only to look at him, and look at him. "Take a picture, it lasts longer," Amari said to me in such a cranky way it almost brought me to tears. Ashton smirked, then pushed his hair away from his forehead and held his hand there. "She doesn't want a picture of you," Holly said. "Bad enough we have to look at you 5 days a week." She had left her desk and was heading over to the classroom library. "Holly, back to your desk," Miss Laverne said. "I want all of you to take your books. You won't be coming back here today." We all gathered our stuff and followed her into the hallway. Miss Laverne took out her phone and said, "Smile, people!" In the photo, Holly and I have our fingers linked together. Our tights look crazier than anything. Amari has his hood halfway on and halfway off, and Tiago, Esteban, and Ashton were all looking away from the camera. The picture is taped to my refrigerator now. We all look so young in it, our cheeks puffing out with baby fat, our uniform shirts untucked, Tiago's sneakers untied. We walked down the hall behind Miss Laverne, her heels softly clicking. I thought about how maybe, one day, I grow up to wear black shoes with small heels that clicked as I walked down the hall, and have students following behind who were a little bit in love with me. 2 small kids came running down the hall, but when they saw Miss Laverne, they stopped and started walking so slowly I almost laughed. Esteban pulled his knapsack to his shoulder and held it with both hands. "You okay, bro?" Amari put his hand on Esteban's arm. "Nah," Esteban said. "Not really." Amari moved his arm over Esteban's shoulder and kept it there. When we got to room 501, Miss Laverne opened the door and held it for us. Nobody knew what to do, so we just stood there. The room was bright and smelled like it had just been cleaned with the same oil soap my uncle used on our floors. Back when me and Holly were in 3rd grade, it had been the art room. But then someone gave our school enough money to open up a whole art studio in the basement. So now this was just a room we passed by sometimes and said to each other, Remember when that used to be the art room? Welcome to room 501, Miss Laverne said. Holly ran ahead of the rest of us and followed and looked around. In the old art room, there were just a few of those chairs with swinging desks in a circle, a teacher's desk with no chair, a big clock on the wall, and some little kid's ancient painting off a bright yellow sun thumbtacked to the closet door. Esteban asked, "Are we getting transferred to a new class?" He put his knapsack down between his ankles and hugged himself. Amari had taken his arm off Esteban's shoulder, but was still standing close to him. When Esteban shivered, Amari put his arm back. I heard him whisper, "It's all good, bro. It's all good. Miss Laverne's not taking us somewhere we don't want to be." Miss Laverne sat at the edge of the teacher's desk and folded her arms. "Every Friday, from now until the end of the school year, the 6 of you will leave my class at 2 p.m. and come to room 501. You'll sit in this circle and you'll talk. When the bell rings at 3, you're free to go home." "Why can't we just talk in our regular classroom?" Holly asked, hopping up to the teacher's desk. "I mean, in your classroom." Our regular classroom wasn't regular. We knew that. But still. "Down from there, please, Holly," said Miss Laverne, waiting for Holly to jump off again before she continued. "I don't want to hear what you have to say to each other. This is your time, your world, your room." "Sounds like you're trying to get an early break from us," Holly said. "Give yourself your own kind of half day." Miss Laverne laughed. "One day, Holly, your brain will be very useful to you." Holly looked like she wasn't sure if our teacher was complimenting her. "What I'm trying to do is give you a space to talk about things kids talk about when no grown-ups are around. Don't you all have a world you want to be in that doesn't have people who look like me in it?" "Nope," Amari said. "Yeah," Ashton said. "Not really." "We like being with you," I added, "in the other room." "You like what you know," Miss Laverne said. "You like what's familiar." None of us said anything. She was right. What was wrong with liking familiar things? "Nothing's wrong with that," Miss Laverne said, being a teacher/mind reader. "But what's unfamiliar shouldn't be scary, and it shouldn't be avoided either." "But I don't know what we're even supposed to talk about," Tiago said. "Like schoolwork and stuff? And to who?" "Schoolwork, toys, TV shows, me, yourselves, anything you want to talk about. To each other. And it's to whom, Tiago?" "To whom?" Tiago said to himself like he was practicing it. "To whom?" I think any other bunch of kids would have started happily dancing and acting crazy, but there wasn't going to be any grown-ups around. But we weren't any other kids. I heard Amari say, "That's stupid," so quietly that I wondered if I was hearing things. Then he said, "We could be talking in class if we wanted to be talking." "You trying to change the art room into the ARTT room, a room to talk?" "That's right," Ashton said, and he and Amari pounded fists. "I like that." Miss Laverne clapped once and pointed at Amari. "You are brilliant." I could have come up with that, Holly rolled her eyes. I could have added an R and thrown in the acronym out there. She said acronym loudly, making sure Miss Laverne heard. "Nice use of the word, Holly," Miss Laverne said. "Okay, so because the art room is now the ARTT room, no one gets in trouble for talking here. You get in trouble for taking out your phone. You get in trouble for being disrespectful." How you gonna know if you're not here with us?" Amari asked. "I'll know." And we all knew she was telling the truth. Teachers knew things. That's all there was to it. "Well, if I have anything to say to anybody," Amari asked. "What if I don't have anything to say to anybody?" Amari asked. Miss Laverne laughed again. "Since when do you not have anything to say, Amari?" She shook her head and waved her hand to include all of us. "I can't believe you all are so resistant. I'm giving you an hour. To chat! You get in trouble for this every single day. How many times do I have to say, 'No talking'? Now I'm saying, 'Talk'." Amari tried to hide the smile, but she didn't do a great job of it. "Okay, I'm vibing it. The old art room is now the new ARTT room, y'all. And I bet you can draw it in here too, if you want," Ashton said to himself. Miss Laverne nodded. "Draw, talk, and yes, Amari, the ARTT room is beyond clever." "I like it. Anybody could have thought of it," Holly said. "Yeah, but I see you didn't," Amari said. And like that, Miss Laverne told us, "In this room, we won't be unkind." She started she started it. Doesn't matter, Amari. I just want to get it straight, Ashton said. So school now ends at 2 o'clock on Fridays? He had a pale, white skin like my uncle, and hair that always fell to his eyes. Even as he asked, he was holding it back with his hand. Once Holly had said to him, "Just cut it already," and his ears turned bright red. My own hair had always been bright red, but lately it had started getting darker and kinkier. If Holly's mother didn't braid it for me, I just pulled it back into a sloppy ponytail that frizzled all around my face. "Geez, Ashton," Holly said, "that's not what she's saying. This is so not deep, people." I don't really understand why we're going into another room," Ashton said. "By ourselves." I think looking back on that day now, that's the line that will always stay with me. Another room, by ourselves. How many other rooms by ourselves have we walked into since that day? Even if they weren't real rooms and we didn't know what we were doing. I stood there thinking about my father. In 6 months or a year, I didn't know exactly when, I'd be walking into another room, the one where my father lived with me. And as I stood there, Esteban was inside the room where he didn't know where his dad was. He glanced at me. That day, no one but Holly knew that my dad was in prison. I felt like I was betraying Esteban, like I should have been standing next to him and saying, "It's going to be okay." But I couldn't. I couldn't tell the truth about my dad to help him. So I looked down at my skirt and thought about rooms. I wondered about Tiago, Holly, Amari, and Ashton. What were the rooms for them? What did they hide in those rooms? Another room, I thought. We are always entering another room. That day, Miss Laverne pushed us out from the familiar and into the unfamiliar. It felt like an hour passed as she waited for us to say something. I looked at the clock. The second hand made an echoing sound when it ticked. It was 5 minutes past 2. 55 minutes left. "You can do this, Ashton. You can do this," Miss Laverne finally said, and with that, she walked away. With that, she let us go. It's been chapters 4 and 5 of Jacqueline Woodson's Harbor Me. Thanks.